The terrorist group Hamas has attacked Israel in the air, on the ground, and in the sea.
The second I understood the depravity of what happened and the barbarism.
They've kidnapped Israelis, including children.
October 8 is a new documentary that follows the unfolding events around the world after Hamas's attack on Israel set off a war on October 7th, 2023. Joining us now for a look at this film, which is in theaters starting tomorrow countrywide, is the director, Wendy Sachs. Wendy, appreciate your time this morning and being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
This is a powerful documentary. Why did you make this movie?
I watched what was happening on October 8th. It was the aftermath of October 7th, when we saw the hostility in the streets around the world, here in Canada, in London, in the United States, when we saw that Hamas was being celebrated as freedom fighters rather than as terrorists. And then it was a silence. It was like a deafening silence coming from Hollywood and the entertainment industry, coming from governments around the world, coming from women's rights organizations, UN Women, that refused to acknowledge what had actually happened. To me, it felt like the world had lost its mind.
Yeah, you really point out a lot of, hypocrisy, I think, amongst people who would otherwise be, pro-human rights, pro-children's rights, pro-women's rights, et cetera. It's quite powerful, the double standards that really sort of come through in this film here. Did you think those double standards existed before October 7th or 8th, or was this just sort of like proof to you of what we already knew? I
feel like I had seen it. Listen, Israel has been sort of attacked as the pariah state among nations. They've been framed as, apartheid, genocide state. And I think it's really seeped into the ideology of not only academia, but the media and NGOs like Amnesty International. And I think all of that led to this moment that Israel had it coming. And because of that, there was a sense that we can't be sympathetic to what's actually happened. And the reality is that more than 1,200 people were killed, 251 people were taken hostage, including Canadians and Americans. And again, it just felt like, where's the moral clarity? How can we not call out hate and terrorism? Let me be clear. This film is not political. It's not ideological. It is about Islamic extremism and jihadism versus democracy in the West. That's what this is about. Yeah,
and it's interesting, right? Because there are, of course, a lot of Jewish and Israeli voices in the film, but it's not entirely, based around that in the documentary. I keep saying film. And I think that's important, right? Because you mentioned you're not trying to make a political film. You're trying to make a film or a documentary highlighting what has actually happened here. How did you get some of those voices that were not maybe the surprise voices in the film? I'm thinking of the congressman.
Congressman Richie Torres. He's gay, Black, Latino, Hispanic, and unapologetic and speaking out against the double standards of what happened. Same with Douglas Murray and Mossab Youssef. He's the son of the co-founder of Hamas. He understands Hamas up close and personal, and he's speaking out. So it was really extraordinary to make sure we have voices across the political spectrum, but also non-Jewish voices to unpack how we got to this moment and to really understand what anti-Semitism is today. It has really been repackaged as anti-Zionism.
Now, of course, this film has already been screened at TIFF recently. It's going into theaters Canada-wide coming up tomorrow. What was the reaction and response, I suppose, in the theater and outside the theater earlier this week when it was screened? And what are you now anticipating as it does hit theaters more countrywide?
We are getting a tremendous response around the world to this film. We crossed the $1.1 million mark at the box office in America. We're being screened sort of globally at this point. And it's a tremendous response. At the same time, we are getting protests. There is a sense that somehow this is this ideological Zionist film, and we are definitely, getting attacked. But I think that the noise on the other side is just loud, but it's not representative. There is just, this is striking a chord with not just the Jewish community here and around the world, but with non-Jews and allies and people who understand this is not political. This is not a film about the Jewish community or the state of Israel. This is about truly democracy in the West versus extremism.
Okay, Wendy, I appreciate this. I'm sure it's a documentary you wish you didn't have to make, but clearly you've made it, and it's now, again, out in theaters starting on Friday. Wendy, thank you for the time this morning.
Thank you so much
Appreciate
for
this.
having me.
Appreciate this.